just joined us just for another review. That's all.
No, no worries. So let me just reiterate some things in case somebody watches this recording and doesn't watch Wednesdays. First and foremost, group work is not mandatory. It is only suggested. So there are a lot of places in the course where it talks about working with your group and evaluating your group and all that kind of stuff. Just ignore all those things. If you want to work in a group, great, I encourage it, but I'm not going to mandate it. I'm not going to create groups. I'm not going to grade your groups. I'm not going to have you grade your groups. So you can just ignore all those things. Your homework assignments are never turned in through Turnitin, because your Turnitin scores will be horrible, because you'll most likely be including the question text, and so it'll match other things really badly. So don't ever bother with homework through Turnitin. The only 3 things that go to Turnitin is your critique of a research article, and the mini project, and the final project. That's it. The homeworks, just turn them in normally. So that's kind of those basic things. Let me share my screen and show you some stuff. All right. So let's see, let's begin with the Google Drive folder, which if you go to the announcements, the very first one or bottom one, depending on how you look at it, has a link here which brings you to the Google Drive folder, which is where I have all the information you guys will want. This one right here has, of course, last night's recording, and then tonight's recording will go right here. And then these 2 are just recordings from the last 2 times I taught the course. So you can always go back and look at these for extra help, because there might have been some things I discussed on week 3 for them that I don't discuss week 3 with you guys. So it's just another wealth of information. The SAS stuff folder, of course, has all sorts of extra stuff to help you with SAS. This one being the most important, because that one has all of the codes that you need each week for SAS. So when you're trying to figure out how to do something, that's really kind of the best place to start looking. So week 1, we're not really doing anything in SAS other than making sure that you can log in and create a folder and upload a file. But starting in week 2, then when you have to run frequencies, here are the SAS menu. You go into statistics, one-way frequencies, then you choose your data set and your variable and you run it. When you want to do summary statistics, you go into the SAS menu, right? So you go to the statistics and then summary statistics. Again, you choose your data set, you choose your variable, choose your category if there's a grouping variable, and then under options, you can select your output items, and we can talk more about that later. And then there's all sorts of little coding options. SAS doesn't do modes well, so this code here will make SAS show you multiple modes when you have multiple modes. And then here's how you do cross tabulations, here's how you do graphs, here's how you get a histogram, here's how you do a stem and leaf plot, and so on and so forth. So every week I've got either the menu options for doing something, or code if it has to be done by code. And so that's going to be a wealth of helpful information, and I would recommend that you guys just bookmark this page, and maybe even when the class is over with, download a copy and keep it yourself for when you have to go and do stuff with SAS again later for 810 or for your dissertation. I don't foresee this bookmark changing. I don't foresee me moving the folders around. So if you have this bookmarked, you should have access to it, as long as I'm around. But just in case, it's always nice to have your own copy. And then data sets. These have all the data sets for every week, so you can get them here instead of trying to find them within the class, because they can be a little hard to find within the class. And then homework questions. These are copies. These are basically just all the homework questions in one place, so you don't have to go and look in the book. So you can use those, and they're Word docs. So if you open them up as a Word doc, you can just literally start typing all of your stuff, your answers in. And if you're going to do that, please just make it obvious where your answer is. Like put your answer in a different color, or put some spaces in there. So make it easier for me to find your answer, so I don't just see page upon page of black type everywhere, and I'm like, okay, so where does the question end and where does their answer start? That kind of thing. So make it easier for me to find your answers. So like that's the one from week 3, and so on and so forth. What else do we have in here? Copies of the PowerPoints for all the weeks. So if you want to look at what week 1 is talking about, this is the week 1 stuff, and what we're supposed to go through, and you can go through that at your leisure. And that's pretty much it for all the files in the Google Drive. Make sure that you're always keeping an eye on the announcements. I added a new one at the beginning of the week with the information on our meet times. And so I might, if I have to add a new one later on for something else. But all of these have good information, how to get 100% on the homework and key information about the course. So probably be a good idea to read through those at some point. Okay. Have any of you had difficulties getting into SAS On Demand? So does anybody need to be shown how to upload data into SAS On Demand?
I'm going to admit, this is Amy. I don't know if
Yes.
I haven't even tried yet. So I guess if I could hold my answering my question until.
So you mean you haven't tried creating an account, or you haven't tried uploading data? Like, do you have an account? Can you log into SAS Studio yet?
I did, and it said that I had done that before. So I guess I had, an account. So I haven't done anything. So yeah, so I'm.
Can you get to this window?
Yes.
Okay, and so you can actually open up SAS Studio.
I believe so.
Okay, why don't you give it a try right now and double check?
Okay, you want me to do that right now?
Yeah. Go to welcome.odo.sas.com and see if you can log in. Because that's really the main thing that we need to do tonight, is to get everybody set up. So don't feel like you're holding up the class, because this is exactly what we're supposed to do tonight.
Okay. Okay. Let me please. Yeah. Continue on. I remember seeing it in the folder, or will you give me the web address again?
It's welcome.oda.sas.com.
Yeah, there it is. Okay.
And that's if you actually already have an account. That should take you to where you can log in. It should look something like this.
Dr. McBride, it's Michelle. Are you able to touch base just a little bit on R? Is R just a separate platform we will utilize in addition to SAS, or is it like a completely different program that does the same thing?
R is a completely different program that does the same thing that SAS does as far as it does statistical analyses. R is an open source program that was written and created kind of by a community of statisticians, and it's constantly updated by a community of people. It's like a socialist version of statistics. It's a great platform, and it's free, which is why a lot of schools are starting to use it. But in order to combat that, SAS came up with this SAS On Demand for Academics, which is also free, because SAS used to cost a boatload of money. So
Okay.
A lot of schools have gone back to SAS because it just has more support materials for it, because R was created by a community of people. There's no like, one governing body that puts out a book that says this is how you do stuff in R. There's some manuals and things out there that are written by people, but figuring out how to do stuff in R is not as easy as it is in some other things. You kind of have to put some work into it. As far as I understand, Franklin is no longer using R.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
just know it was in some of our presentations and stuff. I just was curious about it.
Yeah, I think they used to use it at one point, but I'm fairly certain that they are doing everything in SAS now because of the free access that we have to SAS On Demand for academics.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. At least
Sure.
now if I hear R, like I'll know like what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
I received a note that an email is being sent to me, so I misunderstood. I have not.
Okay.
So I just set up a login right now. So.
Okay, no problem. So when you get that email later, just make sure you can log in.
Okay.
I showed it in last night's class, and I'll show it again here, but you can always come back and watch the recordings if you forget. But once you log into SAS, it's really simple. The only thing you need to do, and this is the only thing that anybody needs to do for the first assignment, the meet session assignment, which is 50 points, is upload a data file. So when you log into SAS and click on the servers, right? I think everything's probably, I don't know if it defaults to one being open, but anyhow, when you click on the server files and folders, it's going to look something like this, right? You would open this up and you would see these two. If you open up files, the only thing you're going to see is a SAS user .v94. That's just kind of a default folder that they give everybody. I don't use it because I'd rather put my stuff in a folder that means something. So I right click on files and do new folder, and then gave it the name data files and hit save, and then did it again for programs and hit save. And I created these two folders so I can put all my data files in here and all my programs in here. And then once you have your data files folder, then simply, again, all you got to do is, click on it so you can see that it's the one that's highlighted. And then if you click on this little icon up here, this is the upload icon. If you just hover over it, it says upload next to it. And if you click on that and then choose files, it'll bring up basically a search window, right, where you can then go find your Excel file that is on your computer. So you would have to save, download them. Of course, I have to call now, and do it that way. So like if I go to Franklin and 807 and clicked on here, then hit upload, it would upload that data file to that folder. But I already have that data file there because I have all of them there already. And then the reason why the programs one is here is because you will be doing some programming for certain things. And so it's, I think it's a good idea to save those programs in case you want to come back and do that stuff again, right? So especially with the probabilities, we'll run these over and over again. So that's basically my spiel on just getting started on SAS. The only other thing I want to make sure that everybody hears and understands is that, I'm here to help. So I would rather have you guys ask me questions about your homework and get the question right than have me just grade it and have things marked wrong. So, ask questions, post things to the doctoral dialogue each week. If you go into discussions, you'll see that we have the Unit 1 doctoral dialogue. Well, if you don't know how to do a homework question, just post it there. And then, next week it'll be the Unit 2 doctoral dialogue, and you can post a question there and your classmates will help, and I'll chime in as well, and we'll work together as a team to make sure you understand everything. And then if you want me to check over your work before it gets graded, I'm going to need it no later than Friday. So it'll give me some time to give it back. I'd really ideally like to see it no later than Thursday night, so then I can do it Friday and get it back to you rather than having to look at it over the weekend. So try and get working on the homework earlier, because starting next week, these meet sessions on Wednesdays and Thursdays are voluntary. You guys do not have to show up. You know, nobody has to come to any of them, but you're more than welcome to show up to both. You're more than welcome to, you know, show up late, leave early, whatever. It's just pop in whenever you can, whatever fits your schedule, and ask your questions, because I'm going to dedicate that time really to do a short lecture, a very, very short lecture, like 15, 20 minutes tops, just talking about the material that we're covering for that week. And then the rest of the time is going to be just Q&A. If you don't know how to do question 3 on the homework, I'll bring up question 3. We'll talk about it. I'll bring up SAS. I'll show you how to do it in SAS, you know, and basically show you what the answer is. And we'll go through all of them, and you can get all of your answers that way. That's fine, because it's really more of a learning experience of being able to do it in SAS and understand how the things work. I don't care that I'm giving answers away. But you need to, you know, try it on your own and then come prepared with questions. So if you can try and get going on the homework early in the week, by the time Wednesday rolls around, you can show up to that first meet session and ask a bunch of questions, and then come back Thursday. If you have any more questions, and it really should be, you know, you should be ready to turn it in early at that point. Any questions at all, any of that stuff? Okay, let's see. Just to help out, so for this week, if you click on assignments, you'll see that you have your Unit 1 practice assignment. That's due Sunday at midnight. And that's basically just the set of homework questions for that first week. And click on submit assignment, and submit a Word document is preferred. PDF if you can't do a Word document, but hopefully you can do a Word document. And then the only other thing you have to do this week is the Unit 1 class meeting. And again, you would submit here, and you could submit whatever you want there. It's really just taking a screenshot of SAS. So when you're logged in, I don't know why mine keep, oh, it's out over here, that's why. When you're logged in, I just want to see a little screenshot of a data file that's been uploaded. So you don't have to take a screenshot of the whole thing, you know, it doesn't have to be a big one like this. You can just take a tiny little snippet that just shows that you've got some files uploaded. That's all I need to see. Set that and paste it into a Word document, save it, and upload it. That's all you got to do. And that's your 50 points. You don't have to worry about, I don't know why it says download R. They really need to fix these.
Well, I think I saw that, and that's why I thought I better jump on tonight, because maybe I missed what R was last night. And then I hadn't gotten all the way through the material for the first week, so I saw there was videos on it, so that's why I wanted to jump on and see.
Yeah, they really need to update this. Yeah, look at this. You will have the option to use Excel or R. See, and I've been told that we're not allowed to allow you to use anything but SAS. And then here it tells you can use Excel or R.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what was confusing me. And when I looked at the videos, I thought, well, this just looks like another platform that does the same thing as SAS. Like,
it is, yeah, it's exactly that.
Do you have a preference on what we use? Because I would rather learn to use SAS. So, so I appreciate your clarification on that.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have to email Dr. Alpay about this as well and find out if maybe this is a change, because I don't remember seeing this before. I'll have to open up one of my older classes and see if it's there, and see if it's just something that's been left over and they have forgotten to change it. Because like I said, as far as I know, the last time I asked this question, she told me that we are supposed to require you guys to use SAS and only SAS. God, everybody likes to call when I'm teaching. Yeah, and so for now, I would say just think about SAS only, and I'll double check and I'll send out an email or post something if anything's different. I think this is just a typo. I think it's old instructions that they have not cleaned up, but we'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Do you guys want to talk about the topics for this week? There's not much going on other than it's a bunch of vocab. If you look at the PowerPoint, it talks about data types and sampling, different types of sampling. You know, how do you sample? How do you do a simplified or gosh darn it, an SRS, a simple random sample? How do you do stratified? How do you do, you know, all those different types of sampling techniques?
Dr. McBride, in the reading, it didn't seem to use independent and dependent variables. Instead, it was talking about maybe, I think, control variables or response variables or something like that. Is that the preferred terminology?
So independent and dependent variables, that wording is usually only reserved for experiments. So if you're doing an actual real experiment where you have control of one of the variables, then you call that the independent variable, and then the dependent variable is the thing that's being controlled by the independent variable. If you're just you know, looking at data and doing you know, like a retrospective analysis where you go back and look at stuff, then that's when they talk about the response variable, and I can never remember what the other one is called. Oh gosh, I'm blanking on it right now, but that's when they use those other words. So in my opinion, they all mean the same darn thing, right? I think of it as input and output, right? It's the stuff you put into the formula, and the output is the answer you get out of it. So in the simplest case, the independent variable gets put into your model, and the output variable gets spit out of it. And it's the same thing when they talk about the response variable and the other one. Damn it, that I can't think of what it's called.
Is it explanatory?
There it is. Thank you. Explanatory and response. Thank you.
I have notes recently. So.
I was going to say that, and then I thought, no, I'm probably not right.
Yeah.
No, that's very good. Yes. So those are the same things. So usually when we're dealing with, you know, the vast majority of the data you're going to be dealing with are going to be explanatory and response. You're not going to be a scientist in a lab, you know, with a control group and all that stuff and doing an actual real experiment where you have an independent and a dependent variable. So that's, it's just pedantic stuff. You know, I don't know why they make such a big deal out of calling them different things, but that seems to be the rules as to when you call them independent and dependent. And in my book, they all mean the same damn thing. And if you refer to them either way, I'm not going to mark you wrong because I understand what they all mean.
That's really, really helpful. I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Sure. Yep. Anything else? Anybody else come across anything that seemed a little wonky? Okay. All right. Well, let me just look at one thing. Make sure that you guys get started on this stuff early and start asking some questions. I can tell you right now that if history repeats itself as it almost always does, the first question, people get this one wrong a lot. They have a hard time figuring out what the confounding variable is. They have a hard time figuring out what the explanatory variable is, and the response variable. But so get going on this and get discussing it in the doctoral dialogue, and I can chime in and point you guys in the right direction. 2.7 is usually pretty cut and dry when it's asking for the population of interest in the sampling frame, that kind of thing. So is 2.9. That's pretty cut and dry. Same as these, figuring out these three different samplings, right? A simple random sample versus a stratified sampling versus a clustered sampling. The simple random sample, if you've never heard of these things, simple random sampling is the gold standard. That's what you always want to strive for, but it's also one of the hardest things to actually achieve. So the best way to describe simple random sampling is think about it as a name and a hat sampling. It's basically your entire population that you're going to sample from is just thrown into a barrel, and you're just going to pick things out one at a time. That's a simple random sample. So every single item has the exact same probability, right? The exact same chance of being selected because it's all sitting in one barrel. And if you're going to grab 20 things at random, then that means any one set of 20 things from your population also has the same probability of being chosen because you're choosing things randomly. Now, the difference between a simple random sample and what could be just a random sample would be if you were, let's say you were trying to take a sample of students from Franklin University, and you got a list of everybody's student ID numbers, right? And let's say there are 1,000 Franklin students. So you've got 1,000 ID numbers that are, listed numerically. And you want a sample of 100. So that's 1/10 of your population. So what you would do is you would randomly choose a number between 1 and 10. Maybe you have a 10-sided die because you're, a Dungeons and Dragons geek and you have a 10-sided die. Or you get a computer program to randomly choose a number between 1 and 10. But somehow you randomly choose a number between 1 and 10. Comes up 7. Okay, so now you take the 7th person on the list, and then every 10 after that. So you go 7, 17, 27, and you do that, and that would give you a random sample of 100 people. Now that would be a random sample. Every single person had the same chance of being chosen. They all had a 1 out of 10 chance of being chosen because it all depended on that first roll of the die as to what number it landed on, and then it would be whether or not it caught, if you were the 23rd person on the line, then you would need the roll of the die to be a 3, right? But if you were a 26th person, you would need the roll of the die to be a 6, right? So there's a 1 in 10 chance. So everybody has the same probability, but every set of 100 doesn't have the same chance. In fact, like the first 100 people on the list would never be your sample because you're always choosing every 10th person, right? In fact, any set that included 2 people that were next to each other on the list, 2 consecutive people, that would never happen because you're, again, choosing every 10th person. So it's a random sample, but it's not a simple random sample because every group of size 100 doesn't have the same probability of being sampled. In fact, in this case, there's a lot of those groups that have a 0 probability of being chosen. So that's why the only way to get a simple random sample out of that would be able to take the entire list of 1,000 students and have a computer randomly choose 100 numbers. And then that would be a simple random sample. It's the same idea of putting all 1,000 numbers into a hat and pulling out 100 slips of paper. So that's a simple random sample. Stratified and cluster, those can get a little tricky figuring out the difference between them. The thing that I like to do, it's a little cheat. But I like to do online, there are some great pictures of these. And if you go and look for these, it'll show you the difference between stratified and cluster sampling with pictures. And it really makes sense. It makes more sense. Like this picture to me explains stratified sampling versus clustered sampling so much better than any other, than words could be. And basically what happens is with stratified sampling, you take your population and you stratify them. You put them in groups, in strata, right? That's what strata are, they're groups. And you'll notice that these groups all have similar colors, right? This is all black group, blue group, purple, and so on and so forth. So the idea is you stratify them by some sort of characteristic. Like you could maybe think of that as hair color, I guess, right? So if this, and then, so you put everybody in those groups. And then what you do is you randomly sample from within each of those stratas. And you'll notice that they didn't take the same amount from each. It's not necessary to take the same amount. Usually you do, but you don't have to, right? But you're just randomly picking from all of your groupings, right? All of your strata. That's stratified sampling. Cluster sampling, however, you break your group into clusters. They don't have to be homogeneous. You can see how the clusters might have all sorts of different colors in them. And then what you do is you randomly choose the clusters. Like in this case, you randomly choose 2 out of the 6 clusters and then take the entire group of things in each of those clusters. So that's cluster sampling versus stratified sampling. Okay, so to me, I always thought that that visual was much better than any kind of wording, like all these words, blah, 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 what the heck does this mean, right? Is a much better way of understanding the difference between those two. And now that you've seen that, that should make it really easy for you guys to answer 211. Same thing for 213 is you're just identifying a method of sampling. That's pretty simple. 216 is the other one that people tend to have some mistakes on. So pay very close attention to this one and definitely discuss this one in the boards. Make sure you're getting it right. 22 has some very little difficulty, but usually is pretty easy. 23 is usually pretty easy, and 31 is usually really easy. Right, so really make sure that you're jumping on the first one and discussing that one. That's where most people make their mistakes. And then I would say for second place would be maybe 16 is where some people make some mistakes. So make sure you're getting on the boards and discussing those early so I can chime in and help you guys as well.
Dr. McBride, would you mind going over confounding variable just to see if I'm thinking the right thing?
Sure. So a confounding variable is actually really well titled because it does what you think it should do, and it confounds things. It muddies the waters. So a confounding variable can either mask a relationship when it exists, or like hyper, what's the word I'm looking for? Like falsely enhance.
Emphasizes.
Thank you, Ashley. Falsely emphasize a relationship that doesn't exist. So one of the greatest examples I like to use is ice cream sales and homicide rates. If you look at national data for ice cream sales and homicide rates, they are very strongly correlated. They have a correlation of like 0.9. Which makes everybody think, holy crap, buying ice cream makes people want to kill people, right? As ice cream sales goes up, homicides goes up. As ice cream sales goes down, homicide rates goes down. But there is absolutely no correlation whatsoever between those two things because there is the confounding variable of temperature, weather. As the heat goes up, right, as the temperature gets warmer, people buy more ice cream, and as temperature gets warmer, people get more agitated and end up killing each other more. And that's the confounding variable that seems to create a relationship that doesn't exist between ice cream sales and homicide rates.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
Okay,
Right.
I have a question.
Yep, go for it.
Yeah, Hans. So the response variables,
Uh-huh.
Is that similar to dependent variable?
Yes, it's the exact same thing.
Exact same thing. Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. Yeah.
Two names for the same thing. We just
For the same
normally use explanatory and response when we're dealing with non-experiments, and we use independent and dependent only when we're dealing with experiments.
Say that again.
So they mean the same thing. It's one of these very pedantic thing that statisticians are very detail-oriented people, and they tend to be very anal about words and verbiage. And if you're dealing with a true experiment where you have a control group, right, and you have a placebo and all that kind of stuff, and you actually are, you know, the scientist in control, and you can control your independent variable. You can basically say who gets the, you know, the placebo and who gets the actual medication, you know, that type of thing, and you're actually doing a true experiment. Then we call those variables independent and dependent variables. The independent variable usually being whether or not they got the drug, and then the dependent variable being whatever you're measuring, you know, like whether or not their cholesterol went up or down, whether or not their anxiety went up and down, you know, whether or not their blood pressure went up and down, you know, whatever it is you're trying to basically augment with your experiment. Then we call those independent and dependent because you're doing a true experiment. But if you're just looking at data that you gathered and you had no control over that data, that's not an experiment. You know, that's like a post hoc observation and things like that. And in that case, if you're still trying to determine if one variable affects another, which, you know, you could still look for even though you didn't put it in a true experiment. For instance, you could try and see if you know, whether or not a parent's education has any influence on a child's success rate in high school. Well, you obviously can't control whether or not the parents are educated. You know, you can't go back in time and make them go to school or not go to school. But there is going to be a relationship between those two things, and the independent variable, well, in this case, the explanatory variable is going to be the parent's education, and the response variable is going to be the child's success, right? So the response variable is the same idea as that dependent variable. It's the thing that is being affected by the other stuff. We just give it a different name when it's no longer a true experiment.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, anybody else?
Hi, Dr. M and all. This is Magali. I was able to log in today.
Great, good to have you.
Thank you, thank you. I'm sorry I'm a little late, so I was just listening in a little bit. I'm not sure that if I missed it, but did you touch upon the SAS? And if so, would you mind repeating what I may have missed?
Well, the SAS is an elite group of British soldiers, but SAS is is a statistical analysis software.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just being so what do you need to know about SAS? Like what you do you have an account? Can you log in? How far have you gotten with it?
I started creating the account. I
Okay.
didn't go through the whole thing though.
So you'll need to finish creating the account, and then they'll send you an email verification. Once you get that, then you'll be able to log in. And when you go to log in, let's see, I'll just log out. When you go to log in, you will come to a screen that looks like this.
Okay.
And you'll put in the email and password and everything that you put, you know, in your profile stuff. You'll click on accept. You'll sign in, and then it'll bring you to this screen. You'll never have anything under enrollments or courses. The only thing you'll ever have is applications, and it'll just be this one application, SAS Studio. You'll click on that, and it will load SAS Studio for you. And then once you've done that, all you need to do is upload data into your folders over here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So under files, I created these folders. So if you right click on files and do new folder and give it a name and hit save, you can create a folder called data files. And then if you click on data files and click this little thing up here, which says upload,
Okay.
and then click choose files and go and find wherever your data is saved on your computer, and then hit
Oh,
upload, it will upload it. And then once you've done that, all you have to do is use whatever kind of snipping tool you have and take a little snip of just this little bit here showing that you have a data file in there. Obviously that would be no good because there's no data files there, but if you opened it
okay.
and showed it, then that's all you got to do, and that's your assignment for the week 1 meet session.
Okay.
And there are recordings of both this week's, this session and last night's. So you can always go into the Google Drive and go back and watch yesterday's session and or
Okay.
this one. And I go through this whole process in both of them. So if you
Okay.
forgot anything, you could walk you through it again.
Great. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I do have one more question.
Sure.
Can you go back to the SAS Studio?
Yep.
Yeah. So for the to import the data file, we can Excel file and anything, right? It doesn't have to be Excel 301 or anything, right? We can import any file we want.
Well, it has to be
Excel?
an Excel file.
Yeah, but we
But it
can
can be
name it
called
anything.
You can name it anything you want. Yes.
Okay. And we can add any kind of data we wanted. Just the exercise is just to import the XLS file.
Yeah, I mean, these files you want to import because, you know, they're the ones that have the data that you're going to need for that specific homework question. But yes, in the long run, you could upload any data that you wanted as long as it's in an Excel spreadsheet.
I mean, for this assignment, though, it's okay, right, to just import any file?
Yes,
Or
yes.
you want us to specifically?
Nope.
Okay. Okay.
Any file.
So the second question is, why do we have X next to the file name?
EX?
X,
for
the file,
that's
no,
for
no, no, not that.
this thing?
Yeah. Is that because it's not run or compiled, or what's that? Why is that X?
That little symbol is telling you that it's an Excel spreadsheet.
Oh, just okay, the Excel file. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep. Because if you go to programs,
it will be different. Okay,
it has this little
okay.
symbol which shows you it's a program.
Oh, it's just okay, the program. Okay.
Yep. Anything else? Okay. Well, I move that we adjourn 15 minutes early then, unless anybody has anything else they want to ask.
So I'm sorry, one last question. So we're going to use SAS to upload the
Excel files.
Excel files that have to do with our unit practice assignments?
Yes, all of your homework assignments have corresponding homework questions. So for instance, this one is for chapter 3, question 1, chapter 3, question 4, chapter 3, question 10, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Now there aren't any data files needed for the first week, because this first week is just kind of a bunch of homework questions.
Okay.
But once we go into week 2, you'll see 3.1 is right here. And so that's where you would need that data file 3.1. 3.4, there's the data file for 3.4. 3.10. 3.11 says construct a semi-leaf plot for the data from 3.10. So you just use 3.10 again. And so on and so forth. So all of those data files are in the Google Drive, right? If you go to the Google Drive, you can see the data sets are all here under week 2. There they all are. You can upload them all into SAS and you're ready to go.
Okay, got it. Oh, okay.
And the link to the Google Drive is in our classroom. So if you forget, just go back to our classroom, go back to the announcements, and the very bottom announcement has the Google Drive access and you click on that, and that will open the Google Drive for you.
Okay, I did see that. Yes. All right. Thank you again.
No problem.
Yeah, I didn't try that, but can we import the file directly from the Google Drive, or we just have to save it first to our desktop and then import it from there?
You have to save it first to your desktop, because when you try and import it, it's going to open up a Windows Explorer window where it's going to look for files on your computer. You can't ask that window to go look for something on the internet.
Okay.
So it won't work,
It won't
unfortunately.
work. Okay. Thank you.
No. Let me see. I haven't tried this, but let me see if I can drag and drop it. I don't think you can. So let's just open this, and let's see if I can grab this. Yeah, I can't even drag it off the page. Once I try and drag it off the
No,
Google
I mean,
Drive
can
page.
you, let's say, click on the data. Let's try to import it. Upload, choose file.
Yeah, it's not going to let you, because when you do choose file, it's only going to come up with a Windows Explorer window.
Yeah, let's put it for the file name extension. Just paste it on the file name and see if it does. To the location.
No, you can't, because it's not on my computer. See, it's only going to look for things on my computer. So you
And
can't.
I meant to, if you click on the, why don't you paste it on the file name, the address at the bottom. At the bottom, just file name. No, the, okay. You know
It's not going to work. You can't do.
No, what I'm saying is just a file name. If you paste the file name there, it might open it from the directory. Just
No,
paste
it won't.
Can you paste? Okay.
It won't. Because these files are on the internet. It's a web.
Yeah.
They're on the web.
Yeah, open it now. Click open. So it's going to open it, and then you can select. I'm going to see if we can do that. Yeah.
Nope, doesn't work.
Hold on. Okay.
You could maybe, let's see, if I,
The desktop version, maybe. Yeah.
if you share it, and then get the shared link. So there's the link. All right, so let's try that. Yeah, I don't know what it's doing, but yeah, it's not going to work.
Okay.
Nope, you're going to have to download them and then upload them. Sorry.
No, no problem. It's just wondering.
It'd be nice if there was a shortcut, but there isn't.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, anything else?
I don't have any other question.
Okay. All right, guys. I will see you next week. Remember, you don't have to show up, but if you want to, just try and do your homework ahead of time and come with questions.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.